I don't know, but I mean, this phone just got released 2 days ago, and yet it feels kind of old since everyone with early access already reviewed it, and I'm just doing my extended preview here. But I'm doing an extended review because this phone is so good after only just 1 day that I want to let you know as much as possible, and I will actually give you more details here than in the review, just because that's how my extended previews work. Now, let's get into the first thing, design. It looks a lot like the XZ2. That's still a thing with the fingerprint reader quite low. I actually have to say, when I have it on my couch or wherever and I just grab it in normal use at home, I think it's actually not placed that bad. You actually get used to it. And this, for me, in normal use is actually, as you can see, almost my normal position. But if I have it in my pocket and so on, it's a little bit of a different thing, especially also with the power button being a little bit low. But I have to tell you this, everyone says it's a completely bad placement and so on. And I still don't think it's ergonomically the best, but I think it's not that horrible. You will get used to it. I mean, yeah, in normal use I would still wish for it to be higher, or at least to have a really good face unlock. I mean, there is one integrated into Android, which I'm using, but it doesn't really work well. So yeah, that's pretty much a no-go. But it would have been nice if they would have included one. Now, this is the Bordeaux version or the red version. I think that's the nicest one. Also, the green one looks great, but you have, I think, 4 choices. Yes, it is quite slippery, especially with the sides also being a little bit slippery, and it will, yeah, smudge up and so on. It won't be the grippiest phone, but yeah, it's not the grippiest phone, because especially with the sides and now having the curve on the front and back, which makes it look and feel a lot like a Note 9, and I will get into that in just a second. It's a little bit harder than it was on the XZ2 since it does don't have too much to grip onto. But here's the thing, look at it at the front. I mean, this for me, and I just actually noticed it yesterday when the screen was off, and by the way, we have always on, looks a lot like a Note 9. But due to the back feeling a little bit different, I mean, it still resembles one. And this is actually what I'm gonna say already up front. If the Note 9 was too big for you, this might be your phone, because this I would call, also in terms of actual general qualities, a smaller Note 9 without an S Pen. Yes, it's pretty much that good. Not in every aspect, but in a lot of ones. Now, size comparison, because this is still, after all, a noticeably smaller phone. Even though not shorter than, for example, as you can see, the OnePlus 5T, but noticeably narrower. And I have to say, this is still the best smaller phone, I would say. Yes, it's super tall. This is what I'm not so big a fan of, because I always said the balance. But for some reason, they actually balance it quite good, because usually I have an issue with longer phones. It works okay. And yes, we do have this very, yeah, it's still a flat curve. But I have to say, I don't really mind it anymore. I didn't like it on the S8. On the S9, I got used to it. But this curve is actually, it feels, to me at least, just ever so slightly less of an issue. But I got used to it totally on the S9 and also on the Note 9. So, I mean, yeah, some distortion is still there and so on. But we will get into that in the display part later on. Now, camera, pretty much no protrusion. And that's why it will slide on your couch or so on. The fingerprint reader on its own, it's a good one. It's a solid one. It's nothing special though. Then microphone and the SD card and SIM card tray that you can just pull out, but yes, it will reboot. And I think for the first time, it kind of did it 3 times until I actually got the SIM in. So I still don't like that solution that it has to reboot all the time. Nothing on the left. On the bottom, we have USB Type-C, and yes, no headphone jack because we have a dongle. Yeah, that's what it is. But in terms of in-hand feel, it's great. Usability, yes, towards the end, but with all those longer phones, it's not that easy. Button placement is odd. Yes, the power button a little bit too low, volume rocker a little bit too high, and for me, actually, the camera button is a little bit in the way, but it's, yeah, like I said, something you will get used to eventually, just because you have to. Okay, let's get into the display, and I know there were a lot of concerns because it's pretty much, as far as I know, Sony's first OLED display. I can tell you, monster one, a monster one. First of all, professional mode, not that. Highly contrasted and saturated. Standard mode, I just gotta say I like the super vivid mode. I mean, yes, it's not realistic, it's a little bit over the top, but it looks so pleasant. And the great thing is you can customize the white balance. Video image enhancement I would leave off. That's just too much. I checked my own videos and they look almost like a cartoon. You have side sense. I don't really want to get into it. You can double tap and yeah, maybe I will in the review, because I need to use it a little bit more, because I personally use my own gestures, like for example here with Smart Task Launcher and so it's Smart Task Launcher for everyone who wants to always know. Still my favorite app, because I can, for example, now switch to it. I can just access everything just way easier in my opinion. But yeah, otherwise, smart backlight control, night, we have of course a night mode, cover selection, glove mode, accidental, lock screen preferences, screensaver. We have an always on display, that's here in the lock screen settings under smart lock. No, I don't think it's there. Lock screen preferences, here it is, ambient display. It can wake up a new notification sticker for the music information. This is actually quite nice. So if a music is playing, you will see this on the always on display. Show lock screen options, album art, and so on. The good thing about the ambient display is, as you can see, you can have it always on, smart activation, or when you lift it or off. I personally use smart activation because I don't need it on all the time. It's a little bit more power conserving. Now, about those concerns, I know which ones they are, and I will get into those in a second. So let's get into them. Color test. Color shift. Of course, black will be great. Red will be also good. So let's get into white, because I think everyone wants to know if it does color shift on white. And I could have just used a different thing, but here. It's really pretty much perfectly calibrated. And if you go off axis a little bit, as you can see here, it goes a little bit yellow. But this is absolutely as much as any other OLED does. It's not as extreme as on the V series or on some Pixel phones at the beginning. This is absolutely normal. So here there is a color shift, here there is a color shift, and also it's a minimal one. It's just about as good as, or just about as much as on the OnePlus 5T or any other OLED phone. Nothing to be concerned of. And like I said, yes, there will be some minimal distortion towards the sides and some glare, which I didn't like so much on the 9, but distortion actually is even more minimal than it was on the Sony's, on the Samsungs. And the glare is still obviously still absolutely a thing. But calibration, especially with the super vivid mode, looks nice and bland. Yes, it looks a little bit over the top, otherwise just use standard if you don't like it, but it is a beautiful display. 630 lux, considering this is a Quad HD display this time. Absolutely top. I mean, the sharpness, you definitely see a difference, especially in terms of text and in some detail and so on. And I've compared it with some other phones here. Killer display. And I'm actually super close, maybe even giving it 5 gold stars. I mean, 5 stars, absolutely, because it's bright enough. In sunlight, it was fine. Great colors, great contrast now with the OLED display. Amazing sharpness. So I don't really see why I shouldn't give it 5 gold stars. Glare and so on, I can't judge that into it because I didn't do that on the Note 9 either. So what about the speakers? And we have two. Actually, this one is really well hidden. Really well hidden. I actually didn't find it at first. So where is my song? Okay, we have still the weird rumble function, yeah, but the vibration, just forget that, it's such a useless gimmicky feature. The sound though, for the first time ever, and I've tweeted that yesterday, is quite loud. This definitely, in my opinion, must be the loudest Z phone or XZ phone. I mean, it's not the perfect sound, because even with Clear Audio Plus enabled, it's still not the richest and the fullest sound. But it doesn't really distort a lot, but it gets reasonably loud with a good quality, so I'm happy. So this will be easily 4.5 stars. I don't think I will give it 5 stars, even though maybe because we have pretty much a super rare front speaker system. But I mean, totally. This time, this is the first since I think the Z3, which obviously isn't that good anymore, but back then that has a sound that I'm saying absolutely more than satisfying. Headphone jack though, which is present in a dongle form, I have to say is once again a little bit disappointing. It's just not loud enough. I mean, the quality is okay and it will be good enough for most in-ears, but it's still not even average. It's definitely not nowhere clear like something like a OnePlus 5T or so. Performance, I will keep this super short. This is running on 845, it runs perfect. I mean, is killer smooth. It is killer fast. The animations look a little bit different, just so you can see. As you can see, there is an, well, it works better for me on this side. So you can see there is always this swipe in animation. So it's not therefore because what the XZ2 did, what it kind of skipped almost the animation. That's why this one doesn't feel quite as crazy snappy. But I actually really like this animation. But even though most people won't change like this, so what you will see is this. And I mean, this is crazy fast. It's responsive, it's fast. That's all I'm gonna say. Battery life. We have to mention a few things. A full charge won't be quick because you still get only a 1.5 amp charger here in Europe for some reason. There should be included something faster. Now what Sony though has is this option that it charges overnight and it kind of adapts to your charging, so it charges slower to let the battery live longer. This is okay, and you can turn it off obviously, but still give me a faster charge in case I want to do it. So I'm not sure what the charge will be. I still have to test that. YouTube test I will do and everything else, but I did already a complete pretty much whole cycle, and I got about, which is not amazing though, 7 hours, maybe 7.5, but I'm gonna keep it reserved for now. 7 hours on Wi-Fi. I mean, we had to just expect that it won't be amazing because of the higher res display, not a huge battery, but I think the OLED, since it is more efficient than an IPS and so on, and Sony's great optimization, still actually manages that. I mean, if they would have had a 36 or 3700 milliamp hour battery, this would have been even more so amazing. But I think, so my hope is 5 hours on mobile data. If I get that, I'm more than secure. And most people should be out of as well, but we'll see. I need more time for that. Yeah. Software. Now we actually have to talk a little bit about that, but only of the quick settings. I mean, this is a small change, but I think this small change in terms of design actually makes the phone feel a lot fresher. And yeah, before someone is complaining, this is not the stock icon pack. This is candy cons. I just found it yesterday. For the review, everything will be stock. Don't bother. But the good thing about this launcher is you can change the icon size from default to small. You can use icon packs from the Play Store, and you can obviously choose if you want the draw button or if you want to just swipe up. You have the Google feed and so on. So the launcher is actually not bad. I would wish for an option to just swipe down for the notification bar, but at the end I still wouldn't use it on a longer term since I would switch to Nova. I'm not going into the rest for the settings, because this, as you can already see, now looks like any other Sony phone. I will get into that in the review. But what I want to get into is the camera app, because finally they actually changed it, and I think actually noticeably for the better. Okay, here on the top you have the settings. And the good thing is this is what most phones don't do. It starts, if I have it in landscape, it starts in landscape. I don't get why so many phones switch to portrait mode and then I have to, yeah. This is good actually. You can change the image size. Then predictive capture, object tracking, auto capturing, lens correction. You have the choice between image quality and correction for distortion. Side sense, yeah, okay, later on. Touch capture, grid, auto preview, burst with camera key, use volume key for, as you can see, zoom, volume or shutter. Sound, if you want to have a sound while making photos. Data storage, smart launch, launch with camera key, which we have, which I pretty much always forget though. Now what I have to say is, if you have this device off and if you have side sense enabled, usually, or smart sense, you pick up the phone like this and the camera should trigger automatically. I turned it off for my reasons. Okay, but otherwise here you can change the cam, but you can also change it like this, which is, I think, a super nice feature. I think it's just easier if you don't have to look at what you're actually pointing. Here you can change the aspect ratio, timer, flash. I still, okay, we have more options, so that's why a toggle maybe now wouldn't make so much sense. Here you can switch from top to bottom to video and photo. And here are the modes. And here is one thing that I like. Do you see this icon? This is always the last mode that you used. And I think this is super nice because, for example, if I do a selfie now, let's do this, bam. And I want to make a portrait selfie, which was the last mode that I've used. It switches to portrait selfie mode, as you can see here. And about that one, I have to say one thing. If you see my samples now, you will see that they are all overexposed for the portrait mode. That's because I had this feature a little bit turned up. Because what it doesn't do is you don't have a reset option. Because you can also, for example, you can maybe see this, change the eye size. You can't really see that much, but my eyes go bigger, and you can change the face to a more alien-like face. You can also have soft skin and the amount of blur. So there is one issue though, what I've noticed. Whenever I took a bokeh photo, pics, you have to have your hand super steady, because what it does is it takes multiple shots and then just puts them together. And I think like 80% of all my selfies turned out very blurry. Otherwise, in terms of modes, we have Google Lens, slow motion, manual, creative effect, pretty much not the good one, panorama, and sound photo. Now about manual mode, that is the odd thing. Only in manual mode you get HDR options for on and off. You don't get that in the normal mode. Something I don't get. So in case you want HDR, and I will have to check that because I did not do any HDR photos yet, then here and obviously here get EV and everything else with 6 minutes. So pretty much everything you get added is HDR and obviously manual controls. But I like the feature that, for example, if I shoot pics, for example, now and I want this picture, and now I want the same picture with HDR. I mean, it's a little bit of a hassle. I mean, actually right now, if you have it turned on already, all you have to do is go back, normal picture, go into the last mode, well, wrong button, and you have HDR. I mean, yeah, okay, but HDR auto and so on would have been a nice feature, but I definitely still think this is a nice improvement, especially when it comes to the camera. We now have HDR, which for some reason does this. Okay, let's look at this. This is normal color. Now look what HDR does. Everything seems super flat. So maybe on a proper HDR TV it would work, but everything looks super flat. So that's why I'm not going to include that into my rest. Okay, 4K, but no 4K 60. Therefore we have HDR, 4K 60 frames and so on, object tracking standard. So this is something that I have to get into. We have standard, which already is actually quite good, I have to say. We have intelligent active. Intelligent active only works though in 1080p, not in 4K 30 and not in 1080p 60. Which is the reason why I wouldn't use it, because, I mean, especially if you go 4K, quality is just so much better compared to 1080p that it just makes no sense. And steady shot still doesn't absolutely nice way in terms of stabilization, because what active steady does, or intelligent active, it's almost a little bit too unnatural. I like what standard does. You can also change the format, sign sense, and this is pretty much the same. So let's finally get into the samples. Okay, this, I mean, is why so sharp? Because the camera actually has autofocus, but it's not the very best one. I mean, look at this picture. Everything is great. Sharpness, details, exposure, everything else is absolutely top. The next pic, like I said, forget why they are brighter. That's because I didn't have the feature on. But as you can see, this is blurry. This picture, once again, absolutely killer. Even with this extreme light, the dynamic range of this camera is absolutely fantastic, and the colors. And once again, blurry. Like I said, forget the brighter. And yeah, portrait mode, yeah, it's still a fake one, so it doesn't work all that well. Once again, a fantastic picture. Absolutely amazing, I have to say. And yes, I have to cut my hair. Yeah, blurry. This one, also blurry. This one is pretty much the only one that I got not blurry. I mean, my failure rate, once again, here I got it right. My failure rate isn't good, so maybe, I don't know, but there is not really an option to make it faster. Here, once again, here I got it also right. And here I didn't. Yeah, that's the only issue. But what is also good in lower light, if you don't use the flash, for example, here, it's not quite as sharp and the colors are fine. But if you use the display flash, absolutely nice. And here, once again, as well. Low light pictures I will get into more, because I still have to do my ultra low light pictures and so on. But outside, I mean, this is where I'm expressed. This is zoomed 2 times in. And I have to actually say, especially if you look at the viewfinder, every time you take a picture, it looks like it completely over sharpens the picture. And I could actually say that it maybe does, but you also have to look at the details. The details are there. So it's not really just over sharpening like crazy. It also has the amount of information. It was very bad lighting here. The sun was very dark, so I had a lot of lens flare. But I have to say the pictures look amazing. I mean, the dynamic range, the details in the pictures, the sharpness, still not the fastest cam. I mean, something like a Samsung is still way faster, but by now it's a level that I don't really bother. The autofocus and everything else works fine enough. Now this is, as you can see here, yeah, super crazy sharp. Yeah, I think there is some over sharpening definitely going on, but I mean, if the results are that what they are here, especially with one thing, the colors. I mean, I would say that the Sony, since this XZ2, now here with the XZ3, has the most accurate colors. Absolutely. And indoors it's fine. Like I said, way more later on in the actual review, but as you can see here, the high dynamic range, the details, the sharpness, everything else is just so top. And I'm not gonna show you too many video demos, just gonna say this, like I said, forget the lens flare. This is the normal standard stabilization in 4K, and I think it works absolutely good enough, because as you can see here, when I'm going to start walking, there is not a whole lot of shake going on, it's minimal. And this is, I still think it's natural, because there is a little bit motion still there, so it doesn't feel unnatural like on a gimbal. So I'm fine with that. And then we have an autofocus that works amazing. You will see this in just a second, because it's so seamless. It has this nice, smooth, slow transition. So it's not on some phones that I've always said that I think it's just too abrupt. It slowly fades in, something like similar to Samsung, and I think it looks even more so natural here. I mean, fantastic. And the quality, yeah, easy 5K, 5 stars for video. Now I have to find the right video here. It has, even on video, on the front cam, an autofocus, but here it doesn't work well, because as you can see, my face is still not sharp. You have to kind of leave it like that. And just as a tip, but I will get into that a little bit more in the review, what I've noticed, if you have intelligent active steady or steady shot on the front cam, then for some reason the autofocus works better. And it's even more so stabilized, even though you don't have any extra crop or anything like that. So it's not always perfectly sharp, because it sometimes loses focus. But with intelligent active steady shot, you get, I think I would say overall, the best sharp focus, and still great stabilization and absolutely amazing video. I absolutely like that. And I have to say one thing. So this is a little bit soft. Inside it seems a little bit overexposed. There I would wish for a little bit more contrast on the front-facing cam. But also the crop is not too much, so you can hold it still. Yeah, a little bit degradation in lower light. But the microphone, super rich, super clean sound. Super happy with that. Okay. I mean, yeah, 22 minutes, this is longer than the review will be. But I just wanted to get out as much information as possible already very early on, because I know most people don't care about waiting. Everyone already thinks a preview is a review. So pretty much the only stat that you didn't get is the battery life and so on. The rest you already got. So let's actually summarize it. It feels a lot like Samsung Note 9, just smaller, which is what I personally want, and I think many people want a smaller phone, because not everyone wants a Note 9. Yes, button placement is not perfect, but I think if this is your daily driver and you don't switch phones all the time, it's not horrible, because as you can see, this is where my normal position would be. So I'm like a finger above, so what I have to do is usually, and then I swipe down. It's not a perfect solution, but if I, for example, just pick it up like this, it's usually always on. So yeah. Okay. Display, amazing. Shift, not an issue. Brightness, not an issue. Colors, amazing. Contrast, it has HDR support and it looks amazing. I'm gonna show this in the review, a video demo that they have here. Stunning display, and I don't see any reason why I won't give it 5 gold stars. The speaker is on a really good level now, finally, even though the headphone jack isn't. But I mean, the problem is, if I don't have a good one, I would just use my USB dongle, which has better sound anyways from Ultrasound. But yeah, okay. Performance, yeah, best of the best, amongst the very best. Sony always was. They optimized, they're very great. Battery life might be, with all those 5-star ratings, actually the weakest one. So I think it will end with 4 stars. But 4 stars is still good, absolutely. We will see. Software, they didn't really change much. It's actually almost pretty much only the quick settings, but this little bit actually changed enough for me, and a few additions what they did in the launcher and so on. It's okay, it's okay. I would still wish for a few features more, but they're slowly getting there. But what they did improve, which is super nice to see, the camera app is now easier to use and it works better. You don't see all that much super crazy long processing anymore, so I got used to that. The usability is great with the last mode change and so on. So yeah, they did a good job. And the camera, I mean, Front-facing cam with a focus is something that pretty much only the Samsung has, and this one has it as well. It doesn't work quite as good. For pics it works great, for video a little bit on the slower side. It just sometimes doesn't really track the face properly, but the quality, top-notch. Main camera quality, top-notch. Low light, I still have to test that. I'm not so sure about that yet. There is usually where Sony might be a little bit weaker. Definitely won't be on a Samsung level. Video is amazing. Even the microphone sound is amazing. I still have to check if it's actually still in sound. So, like I said, a smaller Note 9 without an S Pen, and maybe even a benefit for many people, stock Android experience. It's not stock Android, but it's way closer. This is pretty much a themed stock Android. You get updates from Sony, usually very long. You get them quite quick. We already have Pi running here with all its good sides and bad sides. There are a few things, I know, restrictions and so on, a little bit more limited options, but I mean, I am super impressed. I mean, yes, ergonomics I would wish for to be a little bit better, but otherwise, now here is what I'm actually already doing now. I'm complaining about the speaker because along with the battery life, this might still be a weaker thing, but now it's loud enough, even though it's maybe not the best quality, so finally good enough, so I shouldn't complain. The rest, yeah, and don't worry too much. The curve, I usually wasn't a big fan of it, but it's fine. Therefore, the phone feels very nice and narrow, even though super long, which is something that I don't like, because we just have to get into that a little bit once again. I mean, top and bottom bezel are huge still. I mean, the one on the side's got a little bit smaller due to the curve, but this is still a little bit more than I would have wished for. If they could have slimmed this down by maybe the whole 5 millimeters or so, it would have been amazing. Maybe weight distribution would have been a bit better. And yeah, let's get to the price. 800 is still a little bit much, but I don't think anyone should actually buy it right when it gets released. Wait a month or two and the price will already be down to like 600 and maybe even more so, or at least closer to 700, maybe with some extra goodies and so on. But 800 I don't think it's really worth, because I don't think any phone is worth that much. So once prices get a little bit more reasonable and you like what Sony does in terms of software and everything else you should love, yeah. Should I even still make a review? I would maybe just have to add the battery stats. I mean, I've played for it the whole day yesterday and I pretty much know already everything. I will give you a little bit more smaller details what the usual daily experience was, but otherwise, I mean, you pretty much know everything already. Don't you? Okay. If you have still any actual further questions though, like for example, we have white wine L1 and so on. Obviously with HDR and so on, we have that. But that's that. Until next time. Wow, that got long. Bye.